Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Everyday Heroes podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Dr. Kathryn, not just your regular go-to. She is a full-fledged doctor, and I do need to let everybody know that there was a mistake in the bio, so I'm going to let you know what that is now. In the bio, we were talking about how Kathryn was a child psychologist, an occupational therapist, and the creator of the Courageous Kids. I have actually, unfortunately, made an error in that. Clearly, that's what happens when you do a bio at 10:30 at night and your brain is not really working. Kathryn is a medical doctor, but she worked alongside an occupational therapist and a child psychologist to create the most magnificent app, the Courageous Kids app, that really helps children, whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent, to really work on those transitions, those visual schedules, those visual stories to help, just that everything goes smoother. Now, I don't know about you, but I have definitely there's been times where we've really struggled with both of my kids, whether they were my daughter who's neurotypical and my son being neurodivergent, where things haven't gone as smoothly as they could have had I had this app. So, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please, please, please do yourself a favor and download the app. It's already been downloaded 10,000 times. So that is a huge credit to Kathryn. But Kathryn, welcome so much to the Everyday Heroes podcast.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
Thank you. For the listeners that are listening right now, can you just share with us a little bit about what the Courageous Kids app does?
Yeah, sure. So the reason I started the whole thing is that I have two little boys and they have all the feels, and my eldest is quite a big worrier. And I've got to say, kinder drop-offs were incredibly challenging. Tearful goodbyes, not wanting me to leave, and it was just awful. And I put my little research hat on and wanted to find out what other people do, what evidence-based supports that actually work. And I reached out to all my connections, pediatricians, child psychologists, pediatric OTs. And the bottom line is actually not rocket science. If you prepare your child for what's going to happen, if you give them the emotional support they need, they're probably going to do better. And the way that you can do that is there's many, many, many ways you can do it. But two of the really common ones in the child psychology and OT and child speech pathology world actually is making personalised stories so that you can go through in story form what will happen. In Australia, we call them social scripts. In America, they call them social stories. And we can talk more about those in a minute. And I wrote my fair share of those stories, and they're wonderful. They made a huge difference, but they were also an absolute pain in the ass to make. And I just thought, we're all busy women, right? And who has time to make a social story for their child, knowing that mums all across the world are making the same damn stories for their children? Yep. And I just thought we should have a single place where you can get good quality social stories and you can tailor them to your child. And that was really how Courageous Kids was born. And then I added in some of the other tools that are quite useful, like showing your child what will happen in picture form in order to sort of anything you can do for an anxious child to build up predictability and calmness and take the stress and anxiety out of a situation. They're going to do better. I mean, we all do better. And so I've put some of those tools into this app in collaboration with a child psychologist and OT, just to make it easier for parents to give their child the support that they need without spending 3 days sorting out the art and craft project first.
Yes, absolutely. I've often said to a lot of friends and clients that I treat my children like mini CEOs, right? Because if you look at it, you have got a CEO in an office somewhere who has a personal assistant that is managing his calendar or her calendar, right? Why aren't we not doing that for our children? Why aren't we stepping through what's going to happen? This is what's going to come next, what to expect. And so that's why
that's how they're at the top of their game, right? They know what's
exactly
going to happen.
Right.
It's predictable. You've given them the briefing that they need, and then they can step forward.
That's it. So why aren't we preparing our children the way that a CEO is, right?
Love it.
Like, I just think there's so much.
So basically, we're just amazing EAs.
Yeah, well, 100%. All right, let's go. But it's true though, because we need to make sure that they are on time. We're giving them enough time to get ready so that we can leave for school or get ready to go to an appointment. This is what you can expect. This is what the building looks like. This is who you're going to go talk to. And it's so important that that is happening. But I have definitely made my fair share of social stories, and I didn't even know. It's funny that you should say that. I didn't know that Australia called it social scripts.
Yeah, it's
I've
funny.
always heard it as social
Yeah,
stories.
that's how they
Um,
come. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know that. And so, you know, you got to the point where, like you said, it was exhausting because it was so time consuming. And I was just like, there's got to be a better way. And that's why I'm absolutely in love with the app. I think it's so important that people download it because it saves so much time. Why would you sit there like reinventing the wheel when you
Yeah.
don't have to?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
True.
there's no need.
I think the
And
other
so,
thing is on the time topic, we all are time poor. Like
oh,
most people do not want to go and look at a new app. Like we just don't have the bandwidth for something new. But if you flip it, you're going to spend the time either way. Like
yeah,
either you can spend the time with your child on your lap, reading a story, setting them up for what's going to come, talking through all the what ifs, talking through the worries, and being solid. And it's that moment of connection and togetherness. And that process in itself is confidence building
yeah.
because your child knows that you've got their back. But if you don't do that and you wing it, and I used to wing it quite a lot, you
Hmm.
spend the time at the pointy end, not being able to let go, not being able to say goodbye. And I don't know about you, but after a bad drop off, it was really hard for me to get stuck into my day. Like my mind was at the school gate or the preschool gate pretty much until pickup. So it's all the time you spend in the tricky situation and trying to calm down and unravel, but it's also all your mental space afterwards, just recovering.
Oh, so can I tell you, Catherine, when I used to drop off my son to kinder and there was that, where he was crying and I'd get in the car and I would sob. I
Yep.
would like cry. And if
Yeah.
someone had have looked in, someone would have thought that someone had died. Like that's how much I would be crying just from the stress of autism, the stress of the drop off, the stress of everything that's gone on. And I just couldn't control it. And it was so impactful, and it would then those stress levels, the cortisol levels go up, all the bad stuff comes, and then you can't sleep, your hormones are out of whack, and there's just so much of an on flow effect.
And then you
So
bring that baggage to the next morning's drop off, right?
yep, exactly. So when did you create the app?
Oh my gosh, it's been a work in progress.
Yeah,
I have been doing this for a bit over 4 years now,
yeah, yeah,
because I did not know what I was doing,
yeah,
Natalie.
yeah,
I'm not an app
totally.
developer, and I think I made every mistake possible and learned the hard way. So I
Yeah,
didn't learn to code myself. I went to an app developer. Look, I paid other people to try and do it. I learnt some very good project management skills on the way.
yeah, I love
And
it.
it's now in its third iteration, and it's the best it's ever been. And it's now something that I can be pretty proud of.
That's so good. So, if I'm just thinking about different conversations I've had with friends or clients recently, and I'm just going to give you examples, and you can just let me know whether this would be something that you could do on the app. So, a friend of mine told me that her son needs a tooth extraction from the dentist. Would that be something that they could do in the app where they could create um,
Totally.
that story?
So the
Yep.
answer is yes. So the
Yes.
stories in the app, there are 20 stories, and there's also the ability to make your own.
Yep.
But basically, these are the stories that I used for my kids.
Yeah.
And so, what are the low hanging fruit for kind of 2 to 7 year olds? Starting preschool, there's
Yep.
5 stories on that. Starting
Hmm.
school, there's 5 stories on that.
Yep.
Healthcare, I've got 2 dentist stories, both based
Okay.
on real life. One is when you're scheduled to go to the dentist. You're going to meet the dentist for the first time or the second time, and it's just building familiarity.
Mhm.
Then there's the unexpected visit to the dentist, like when you fall down a step and smash your
Yep.
tooth and it becomes wobbly, real life.
Yep. Yep.
And you're setting your child up for a different experience where it's unexpected, they've got an actual problem and they need to go and get help. And the other thing about the dentist stories, for example, there's also a story about having an operation because yes, we've been through those as well. And as a doctor, I really like demystifying that stuff. I like making it approachable. I like making it familiar. To have an anesthetic and go under the gas, that's like an asthma puffer or a mask that your kids
Yep.
can relate it to someone they've seen or an experience that they've had.
Yep.
And I also find that parents who get a bit freaked out in these I'm in one now, in these sterile environments, just seeing the pictures, talking it through to the child builds their confidence as well, which is quite handy. So for your friend whose child actually needs a tooth out, I'd probably use two stories. I'd use a story about meeting the dentist,
Yep.
and then I'd use the story about having a general anaesthetic, because all this, the point about, I used to make these stories in Word document, shoot down,
Yep.
and then like rejig the child's name, the parent's name, the teacher's name, the photographs. Oh, all. So it's in an app so that you can edit every single word.
Yep.
You also choose a character for your child, and they're special people, yourself, the second parent, grandma, whoever else is on the scene. And then story by story, you'll add in additional characters like the dentist or the teacher or the teacher's assistant.
Mhm.
And so that's all there. But you can also, if you, for example, have already been to the dentist and hopefully have a photo of them or take a screenshot from the website, you can swap out those customized illustrations for an actual photo, because the point of social story, maybe we should recap on social stories, but the point is to present information to your child in a way that's really going to resonate. And that's both with your words and your visual cues. So the absolute best is a photograph to show exactly the scene that they're going to walk into and exactly what's going to happen. But if you can't be exact with a photograph, then you should go very generic, because you don't want your child hung up on sort of random points.
Mhm.
So it's
Yep.
one or
Yeah,
the other.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of the photo of actually, and I've definitely called people before and be like, can you send me a photo
Yeah.
of yourself? Just take it with your phone. It doesn't need to be fancy, but I do need to see your features so that I can show my son.
Yep.
Right. It's so important that they know who they're going to be speaking to. And just to feel
And
calm and relaxed.
and that's why, you know, like a lot of kids have just gone back to school.
Mm.
And school started. And so what I always do in the orientation sessions and the year before is take a photo of the teacher.
Yes.
Sometimes the school will give it to you, but the point is, if you've got that picture, then you just maintain that familiarity over the summer break, and you know
Mhm.
who's going to greet them on their first day.
And so inside, I'm just curious, from when my son was in mainstream, he's obviously homeschooled now, but when he was in
Yeah.
mainstream, one of the things that the school did was they took photos of, obviously with the consent of the parents, of all the students in the class,
So
so
great.
that he could better understand, their names, what they looked like, and we
Yeah.
could study it at home. Is that something that
Exactly. It's
could
one
that
of
be
the
done on the
pages
app
in
as
the
well?
story about my teachers at school and about building familiarity is, I already know some of the kids in my class already. Then you'd
Yeah.
put in that photograph, you'd swap it out. Their names are, and just
Yes.
even if your child knows a couple of names before they start, it really helps.
Of course. Because it's a scary environment for anyone, typical or neurodivergent.
Yeah.
It's a lot when you're starting school.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of the app, is it something that, like, again, I want you to reiterate that it's not just for neurodivergent children, it's for neurotypical as well. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, look, if we look at how do we build children up for success, or how do we
Mhm.
build ourselves up for success, it's like, how would you present something so that your CEO can like nail the next deal? So
Mhm.
you want to give them the preparation they need, you want to give them the relevant facts, but you also want to step them through how they might feel, and
Mhm.
doing that from the security and comfort of home is really has an incredible impact. So
Yeah.
if you can help your child imagine what will happen and imagine the feelings, so that you
Mhm.
can talk through any worries, then when they get to the real event, they're going to do so much better. And
Yeah.
so the way you do that for neurotypical and neurodivergent kids might alter a little bit, in that neurodivergent kids, particularly autistic kids, are going to be much more concrete. So your photographs are going to be even more useful than your illustrations.
Mhm.
Um, and they might need a little bit more reinforcement, because anxiety rates in our regular kids now, like, it depends on the survey you look at, 1 in 6, 1 in 4. That's just general population, but in our
Yeah.
neurodivergent
Gosh.
kids, it's more like 80% carry
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's all about reducing the anxiety before the event, because
Yes.
we know that success brings success. So if you build them up and you take little steps and they have these little wins, then they get more and more confident, and they know
Yeah.
that they can do it. And it means also that when they have setbacks, they know that they can overcome them because they've done it before.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that so much. I also want to point out, now I'm sure I'm speaking to a ridiculous amount of parents on this chat, but have you ever tried to reason with your child who is having either a meltdown or a tantrum? You can't reason with them because they're in that zone where nothing is going in and they are just in overdrive. That is what Kathryn is saying. When she's saying read the social story or the social script at home, that's when your child is going to be the most calm. That's when the information is going to go in the most. It's no good reading the social story once you're actually at the place, because their anxiety might be going up. They might be feeling overwhelmed. Those with all that cortisol levels will be going up as well. It's very hard to get that information to go in then and there. Better to do it at home when they're calm, not when they're tired and they're exhausted after they've come home from like a long day at activity where they just can't process that information.
Yeah.
You know, it might be better to do it in the morning. Would that be something that you would agree with?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
think, it's also hard, to be honest. There are kind of, I don't know if you find this, but there are times during our day where I can access my kids and there's times when I can't. If they're in the middle of something, they don't want to come and read a story on my lap.
Yeah.
See, one of the things I used to find when I did this, and I spent all this time making a story, and my time would get spent on the making, and then we sometimes wouldn't even have time to read it because then the event came or I didn't catch a moment. So you're right. You really want to catch your child at the right moment to do that.
Yeah.
So you even say, and this is why I love a visual plan, we're going to have breakfast, and then after breakfast, we're going to read some stories together on the couch,
Yeah.
and then we're going to do whatever. So we've spoken a bit about stories to set up for success, but the other part of that is making time, making space. And like you said, when that rushed, busy state, I won't even talk about the stress of what's to come, but one of the things that has really helped both my kids is being on time, if not early, for school. It just
Yes.
takes out the worry of being late and the hassle, the stress of it. But it also means that if they're there early, they can see it's not an overload of walking into a full class or a full playground.
Mm-hmm.
And getting there first, particularly at preschool, meant that they could have a bit more one-on-one or smaller group time with the teachers, and then sort of see the individual additional kids coming into the room. So it was just calmer. And so one of the ways that we did that was to use a picture plan, just so that our mornings at home was a bit, less chaotic and a bit
Yep.
calmer. And a visual plan or a picture plan is just a series of pictures, because these kids aren't reading yet, and even when they can read, it's just different to get your information in picture form, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And so we just have a picture plan. You're going to, once you get up, we're going to start with breakfast, we're going to get dressed, we're going to brush our teeth. I live in hope that they'll make their beds, so that's always on the picture plan as well.
Yep.
Pack bag, socks and shoes, and then a picture of how we're getting there: car, scooter, walking.
Yep.
And just having that took the stress out of our mornings, because instead of me nagging again, getting a bit shouty, have you done this? It's time to do this. I can just say, what's next on your plan?
Yep.
And if they're unable to do it independent, usually they'll just say it's this and they'll go and do it.
Yeah.
But even in a time when they go, it's a bit tricky, then I can just help them and we go and do it together. So it's us to defeat the plan or to achieve the plan, rather than me versus my kid.
And is that also, first of all, but let me backtrack, the plan, is that the same thing as a visual schedule?
Yeah. So
Okay, good.
picture plans, visual schedules, they're all the same thing. And then you might know them in different ways, because having a neurotypical and neurodivergent child, for kids who need less support, you can just step it out. In general, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. But for some autistic kids and other kids, they need those tasks to then be further broken down. So some kids, for example, and this isn't part of the app, they might have all the steps for toileting, or all the steps for showering, or all the steps for brushing your teeth. But for many kids, they don't need that level of detail, and just seeing task A, B, C, D, E, off we go is enough.
Yeah, great. Okay. And do they, is there some of a rewards chart or something that you would reward a child? And I don't know if this is controversial or not.
Natalie, it is so controversial.
Because I've heard it from some parents, love the reward system, whether it's a sticker or it's a high five, or whether it's food. I've heard food is a really big, oh my gosh, we don't want to go down the road of lollies or anything like that. But is that something that you would encourage parents to do, or no, let's stick away from the reward system completely?
I
You're on
am
the spot now. Sorry, Kathryn.
No, it's totally fine. I am not a big fan of reward. I don't believe in getting a gold star for breathing. But I do think that I'll tell you what we do in our house. We use a visual plan from the Courageous Kids app. I don't want my kids are young still, I do not want them on a screen in the morning before school. So on a Sunday night, I print out our visual plan and I stick it on the fridge. And when you do that, you get a little paw print to colour in for every, 7 paw prints for the week. We
Love
just use
it.
a Friday. And when they've done a job, they come and colour in their paw print. Now, I don't consider that a significant reward, but we all know how satisfying it is to tick off a job from your to-do list.
It's
And
one of
then,
the best things about my life.
yeah. So then after that, what I do for my kids is if we're on time every day that week and they've done their jobs, I got them a little treat at the end of the week.
Yep. Okay, great. Yeah, I love it because it's so a
Everyone
lot
weigh
of
in on if that's excessive, not enough. I'm keen to see
no.
what people are doing out in the wild.
It's just, you know what, it's really hard because some parents, there's a lot of judgment around reward systems. And so for what works for one child may not work for another.
Well, I think
And
what the theory is it's about intrinsic motivation.
mhm,
And what we want for our kids is to want to do it for themselves. That's intrinsic motivation. And some people will say, well, my kid doesn't have that or doesn't have that yet.
yep,
Often kids, that's maybe true, maybe
yep,
not. But I don't think you're going to nurture it by giving lots of rewards along the way. I
mhm,
think your child's needs are met and they feel safe and they know the routine and they know the pattern and they will feel the benefit. They'll
yep,
probably want to do it. Whereas,
yes,
rewards are more for really non-preferred tasks and we've just got to get through it. The other
yep,
thing about a visual plan, and I don't know if we want to go off topic, but there's also bribery versus reward.
yes, yep,
And
yep,
the difference is, it's not like, oh my God, we're about to be late to school. Honey, if you do these 3 things in under 30 seconds, I'll get you an ice cream after school. That's a
mhm,
bribe.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
reward
yeah, yeah,
is we're going to do this every day. And if we're on time all week, then your reward at the end of the week is we get to have whatever or do whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
reward is set up, known in advance, predictable.
Yeah. And I think it'd be really helpful for parents to even have some sort of a visual schedule for themselves. Like, I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's true. I
Uh,
get feedback from parents going, you know what, it keeps me on time because
mhm.
you can choose how long you assign to each task, and then they can go, oh, so we actually need to start our day at.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't know about you, but if we're running late and I'm going to drop my daughter off to school, the immense, like, anxiety that comes up in the car, and it's just awful, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"I don't wanna do this," and it always happens at the beginning of a school term because we're out of whack, we're out of practice, and then once we get into the practice, we're like, "Oh, yeah, we're back in jazz," but, for that first week, we're like, "Why are we running late? We're late again, we've missed the gate, you've gotta go in," and they feed off that, like, they even if you're not
true.
saying anything,
I'm
they're
going to adjust our visual schedule tonight because my kids have taken to wanting to jump on the trampoline with me in the morning, which is a
I
beautiful
love
thing.
it.
Like, it's connection, it moves their body, it gets the work, it just gets the wriggles out, and it's some really fun time together before we have to separate for school. So I'm like,
Yes.
right, that's going on our visual plan. I've got a trampoline icon, we're doing it. But
Oh, yeah.
now I will just adjust my morning so that we can fit in. Like we always say it'll be 5 minutes, but it's
Yep.
always 10. Um, and then if I leave too late with my youngest, we have a train line that we've got to cross and we'll
Yep.
get stuck. And then the train's there and then he stresses and then we're 2 minutes later than we should be, which for him makes a difference.
Yep.
So we will adjust our plan.
Oh, I love that. I love it. So, talking about the app, so they can just go to the app store and download it. Is there a cost associated to the app?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've
And
jiggled around with this. I am not a businesswoman. So the app is free and you
yep.
get 3 stories, a visual plan, a game. I might change it back. Anyway, it's free to download and take a look is the bottom
Yep.
line.
And then
But I would just say if you do download it, put it on a tablet or an iPad if you can, just
yep.
because if you're
Yes.
organised and you're going to print out the stories into books and bind them for your child, it doesn't matter if you use phone or tablet. But if you're a little bit on the hop, it's more book sized to have that bigger screen. It's better for little eyes. It's a little bit less addictive. You have
Yep.
to use it in landscape, right?
Yes.
Landscape. So it just looks better on an iPad
Oh, yeah.
screen. So download it to your iPad if you can. The stories look better that way. The visual plans look better that way. There's games in there as well. So that's the 3 parts of the app.
Oh,
Everything's the stories and visual plans are printable, of course. The games are not, but they're kind of on the fly. You can do them anytime. And the games are again just about building familiarity, explaining what's expected so your kid doesn't get in trouble when the right thing's never been explained. I just hate seeing kids get told off when I know that they haven't been told what
mm,
was hoped of them. So
yes.
the sort of to have a fun chat and make it, humorous and
Yeah.
all of it's about opening up discussion with your child so they feel seen, safe, heard.
Yes. I love that so much, and I agree with you. Screens in the morning can be a little bit,
Yeah, not for
yeah.
us.
Yes, I understand that. So, okay, well, that's great. That's great that it's free, and that it's accessible to so many
Oh,
people.
I
Because I
should
think,
also say, if you want access to everything, it's $9 a month. I can
yep,
tell you how much I paid for my first social story. It was
how much?
198,
Yep, I'm not
and the
surprised.
whole speech path session when I was
Yes,
working out how to overcome my kids' anxiety. So when I paid $198 and wasted this excellent speech pathologist's time on her drawing a stick figure social story, it actually hurt my chest.
yep, yep, totally. I can agree with that. Yeah.
There's also, it's cheaper still if you do the 6 month or 12-month option. And if for people using NDIS, if you have in any of your goals anything about that awful term social skills or anxiety support or visual supports, you can claim it. You just get your App
Mm.
Store or Google Play receipt.
Yep.
A year's only $88.
Yeah.
And you get 20 stories, visual plans, games, new stuff being added. So it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Yep,
And you can claim
absolutely.
it back. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I'm so glad that you made it because I think it's so
Thank you so
important.
much. Thank
Yes,
you
it's
so
so
much.
important that parents know that this exists,
Yeah.
right? That this is an option for parents,
Well, you don't have
especially
to do it all alone. Like if you've got an anxious kid, it's a full-time job, right?
1000%, 1000%. Okay, we are going into our rapid fire questions. So are you ready?
Okay.
Before I go into that though, where can people find you on socials?
At Courageous Kids app.
Great. Okay, good. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received as a parent or a professional?
Trust your gut. Which
Mm,
actually was terrible advice when I had babies, because I had no experience with babies and I
yeah.
just needed to be told. But luckily, my husband was very good with babies because he's one of a gazillion children. But as you get to know your child, you trust your gut.
Yes, I love that. What does progress look like for you?
It looks like a bumpy, curly, spirally roller coaster, but it
Yeah,
finishes up the top.
yeah, great. What do you do to stay motivated in the hard days?
Uh, I try and stay calm.
Yeah.
I try and look back on successes and I try and feel motivated by previous success.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yep. So seeing that you've done again, like you've seen it done in the
Done it
past
before,
before.
can do it again.
Yeah, I love that. What is a mantra or a quote that you live by?
Oh, I don't have one.
Oh, oh, gonna
Sorry,
have to work on that one.
I'll have to
Yeah,
work on it. A mantra.
yeah, yeah. Something
Oh,
that
I'm pretty
you
straight down the line, man.
straight down the line.
I'm like, I don't do mantras. I don't think
I
I
love
even do
that.
affirmations.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
all right.
unless there's a bit of work beforehand. Yeah, I'll have to think on that.
No, have a think. If you let me know if something comes up after we finish this, let me
Okay.
know. And is there a book or a
Actually,
podcast
I've got an awful one.
yeah, go
I've
for
got
it.
an awful one. This shows my age. Things can always get worse. You've got to enjoy the now. You've got to
Yeah,
enjoy the now. Whatever your child's doing that's better
yeah,
than before, and you just got to take the good right now.
yeah, absolutely. And it forces you to stay in the present, right? To
Yep.
stay right now
Yeah.
because
That might be the doctor in me speaking, but
yeah,
yeah, just
yeah.
enjoy what you've got.
Oh, I love that. And is there a book or a podcast that you would recommend?
Well, yours, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Come on.
Is there anything else that you like that you would say is definitely a go-to for
Do you know
parents?
what? I used to be a little bit too much into it, and I've started reading outside and not being in the bubble so much
Yeah.
anymore. And
Yep.
just connecting back with the world again is just
Yeah.
delightful. So
Oh,
I just read Normal People again by Sally Rooney. I just really enjoyed that.
yep.
I just think read about different life experiences to your
Yes.
own,
Yes.
and that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love when I can get stuck into a good fiction novel as opposed to reading something for my work or autism or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
It just you can do that escape a little bit and just pretend that, you're in somewhere else and
Yeah.
just living a different life. So, I love that. Thank you so much again. So just again, remind people where they can find the app.
Oh, so you look on the app stores for Courageous Kids and you
Yes.
just press that little get button and you'll get it free.
Yep.
Decide if it's for you, for your family, or not for you. And then I'm mostly on Instagram, which is at Courageous Kids app. It's very long. I
Yes.
really
No, that's
got a
great.
short name.
And also, before we go, there is a freebie that I believe that you are sharing with our audience.
Oh yeah, I can do a morning visual plan,
Yeah,
social plan,
awesome.
visual schedule, picture plan. It hasn't got the trampoline on it. You'll have to
That
add that from the app if you want it.
that's okay. And where can people find that?
I will give you a link.
Yeah, okay, great. So I will post that onto socials after we finish up, and we'll go from there. Perfect.
Awesome. Great to
Thank you,
chat.
Kathryn. Thank you,
Thanks,
and we'll talk
Natalie.
to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.